Welcome to the 5th grade Math plus Yellow overview for Unit 1. In this unit, it covers whole numbers and powers. And as you can see as you look at Unit 1, there are lots of concepts being taught in this unit. We have rounding, estimating, adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing, place value patterns, exponents and bases, and then we have some extended problem solving and reasoning. So what I want to do is go over some additional resources to help you as a learning coach and student be successful with these concepts and understand that multiplying whole numbers is not something that just happens in one day. You need to practice your facts every single day, but you also need to learn different strategies based on place value so that you can be successful in multiplying whole numbers. Some of these concepts give you a little bit of extension into more than you need to know, but yet provide you, like with exponents, they let you understand a little bit how place value works and the powers of 10. So what we're going to do is break down this unit step by step and let you know what's the most important thing to focus on so you'll be successful at the end of the year. Now, when you open up the very first lesson, it is going to provide a link to the lesson guide and the activity guide, and that is covered in the previous video that I did. So I have them opened on my computer already. This is the lesson guide for the learning coach, and then we have the activity book for the student. Now I am going to go ahead and go to page 1 just so we can go through Unit 1 and talk about some of the things that are in this book. Now the Learning Coach Guide also goes through all of these and gives you the answer. So I'm going to go back to that Learning Coach Guide because right here, this is kind of tricky. It says to use friendly numbers and then round to the nearest thousand. So I'm going to go back to the Learning Coach Guide because it tells you right here that the friendly number answers will vary. So when your child completes this unit, understand that a friendly number is something, I like to think of it as even counting money. If we were using quarters, a friendly number would be counting by 25s. If we were using dimes, a friendly number would be counting by tens. That's why it could vary. You are not going to see that term on the end of year assessment, but it is important for students to understand how to reason with numbers and make sense of numbers, and that's why they've included it here. It is not, like I said, a tested concept, but it is a good reasoning skill. And then, of course, they will round to the nearest thousand. Because rounding was taught in 3rd and 4th grade, there is not a whole lot of instruction on rounding, but I will go over some things with the document camera in just a bit to show you some videos and some strategies to use so that your child can develop strong number sense and understand the concept of rounding. It's not just about a trick, it's really about understanding the size of the numbers. So, and we can use this hand tool right here and kind of scroll through the document, and you can see it's going to continue to ask your student to round and to use friendly numbers. Now as we go on to page 2, you're still going to see a lot about rounding and estimating. And then when we get to the 3rd page, we begin finding sums and differences, which means we're going to add and subtract. Now you're going to again see words that you may not be familiar with, like use clustering to estimate the sum. I would head right over to that Learning Coach Guide, and there's estimate sums and differences, and it's going to go through page by page. It's going to talk to you about some of the common misconceptions and errors that students make, and it's going to explain to you what they mean by clustering. And again, this is not necessarily a word that your child will see on the CRCT, but it is a strategy. And when students learn varied strategies to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, they are going to be better overall mathematicians. So as we go through, and again, if adding and subtracting was something that your child did not master in 4th grade, because in 4th grade they did begin to add and subtract with the standard algorithm or the standard, form, but your child may need to use manipulatives or base 10 blocks because we don't want them just to learn a procedure. Right here, even though it says estimate, they do ask them to give an exact answer too. So estimating is pretty easy because we can round and estimate, but giving an exact answer may involve regrouping. And we don't want kids just to say, oh, I'm going to just go over here and cross this out and make this a 1 and turn this. That means that they're not really understanding the value of each digit and place value. So in our Class Connect sessions, we're going to do a lot of talking about the value of digits and when we add and subtract, multiply and divide, how we use place value to do all of those things. Math is not just a procedure to get an answer. There is meaning behind it. So again, you're going to have word problems where it's going to ask for an estimate and then an exact answer. I will also say that there are awfully big numbers into millions here in the OLS. Your child will not be computing numbers that large on the end of year assessment. So if they can do these numbers into millions, then that is awesome. Feel free though to break it down into smaller numbers if your child needs that. Now this gets into place value patterns, which is a critical key concept in 5th grade. And you're going to see this in Study Island, also in the Powers of 10 unit. But the biggest and most important concept for your child to learn in this unit is that the value of a digit changes as it changes its place within a number. So even though this number is built with all 4s, the 4 is in the thousands, this 4 is in the hundreds and has a value of 400. This 4 is in the ones. This 4 is 100 times larger because as we move up on the place value chart, we grow up 10 times. When we go down, we divide by 10. Place value is based on units of 10. And that is what the most important thing to learn in this entire unit is. I also want to emphasize that you will be writing numbers in expanded form or expected to master that within Study Island. And there will also be decimals. So even if there's a decimal here and we had a decimal and then we had 7/10 and 7/100, the same thing applies. When we move over to the right, we get 10 times bigger. When we move to the left, we get 10 times smaller. And when we get 10 times smaller, that's 1/10. A lot of students don't realize that 1/10 is also the same as dividing by 10. If we move 2 spaces over, it'd be 1/100th. We would have gone 10 and then 10 more. So again, we'll talk about some more videos and resources for that. Now this basis and exponents lesson, there's 2 lessons, A and B, is not something that your child will see on the end of year assessment, but it is a good strategy and concept to go over. Students need to understand that the base is the number and the exponent is the little number up beside it. But that little number means that you're going to show 36 times 36. Right here it says write 36 squared using repeated multiplication. So we would have 36 times 36. And then it says draw a sketch to show 6 squared. Now this, when you think back to 3rd and 4th grade when students did the area model, if they multiplied the length times the width and they built arrays, we would have 6 rows with 6 in each row to show 36. So it kind of relates it back to the area model and arrays, but your child will not see numbers such as this with the exponent like this on the end of year assessment. They will see 10 to the power of 2 and 10 to the power of 3, etc., because they need to understand place value and how it relates to powers of 10, but they will not see numbers like this. It doesn't hurt to practice because they will, when they get into volume, need to understand that cubes show volume and it's 4 cubed. So we have 4 times 4 times 4. And then when we have the area model, we have 7 squared, or 7 times 7. So it does relate to area and volume, but you're not going to see it specifically written just like this. So as we continue through, again, you can see that there's part B of bases and exponents. Do not stress if your child struggles with this. Just work through it with them and focus on powers of 10. And I'll show you, again, more about that. Now, this is where you may need to take more time to go back and reteach multiplication and division. In fifth grade, students do learn the standard algorithm. Algorithm means kind of like this word, a fancy word for procedure. But before we want students to learn the standard algorithm, we want kids to understand what it means. We want them to break the numbers apart by their place value. And I'm going to show you some videos to do that, because if students can't break apart numbers and understand that we're multiplying certain values by certain values, they're just following procedures and they're not going to understand what they just did. Division, the standard algorithm, like the long division, is not required until sixth grade, but we can do partial products and divide the numbers up in chunks, and I'm going to show you where you can get resources on that as well. Another thing is, on the CRCT, you are not going to be multiplying numbers this large. It would be at the most probably 3-digit by 2-digit or 2-digit by 2-digit numbers. And so you won't be multiplying thousands by thousands, and you will not be multiplying decimals. I think right here is probably a lot about estimating and things like that as well. But this right here, 3 times 3 digits, you will not see. So if you need to break that down and make it a smaller number for your child and make it a 2-digit by 2-digit, or if they're still struggling with their basic facts, continue working on those daily. That is something that's not in the OLS necessarily every day, but it is something that you as a learning coach need to work on every single day. The good thing is about multiplication and division and powers of 10 and all these things I'm talking about with place value, our Class Connect sessions are going to go over them during the month of September. We're going to spend an entire week talking about multiplication. We're going to spend an entire week talking about division. And we're going to spend a couple of weeks talking about exponents, powers of 10, and all of those things that your child needs to know to be successful. So again, that ends Unit 1, and I am going to go back to this Learning Coach Guide. And like I said in the other video, this little tab is closed until you open it up. The very end of every unit ends with a enrichment or extended problem solving, and you will find that activity down here in resources. So I'm going to go to whole numbers and powers, and there's also some other printable resources. But if you go to the extended problems, you'll be able to save that to your desktop or a file on your computer. I already have it saved right here, and you're going to see that this document is probably the most important thing in the entire unit, and it assesses what your child is most likely to see in the end of year assessment. So as you can see, place value is a big deal in fifth grade. We often assume kids understand place value, but maybe they can read and write numbers, but really understanding place value is something else. So fill in the blanks to show the correct representation. 5 million is, 5 millions, or how many hundred thousands? Students aren't often aware that, well, that would be 50 hundred thousands. How many 10,000s? Well, let's go to the 10,000s. It's 500 10,000s. And again, this all relates back to that powers of 10 and how each digit becomes 10 times larger. This is something you're going to see in Study Island and again on the end of the year assessment. Sarah made the statement shown in the chart about the number 33,333. Now in Study Island, again, you are going to have decimals included, but the same concept, you either move to the right or the left, the same applies. You either get 10 times bigger or 10 times smaller. So it says right, true, or false. This spring, when the students take the assessment, there are going to be multiple choice, but there's also going to be open-ended things like this where they write yes or no, true or false, or write a sentence to explain their answers. It says the digit in the tens place has a value, and here's the tens, has a value 1/10 of the value of the digit in the hundreds. And since this is here and we're comparing, yes, it is 10 times smaller, so we would mark true. Okay, now let's look at this one. It says the digit in the hundreds place has a value that is 3 times the value of the digit in the tens place. Well, since our place value system is based on tens, that would be wrong. It is 10 times the value. It's 10 times bigger. So you'll continue to work through things like that. Then you'll head into some of the powers of 10. As I mentioned, so you're going to only see bases of 10 with an exponent. You're not going to see 3 to the fourth power or 23 to the second power at the end of the year. So this is more likely what you're going to see. And so you can go through that. There is a teacher guide. Here again is the powers of 10. The place value chart shows the number 13. Write in the place value chart the number that you would get if you multiplied 13 by 10 to the fourth. So that 10 to the fourth means 10 times bigger. Now I'm going, or 1,000 times bigger. Okay, I have my document camera open and I'm going to get a sheet of paper here. And I am going to show you if we have 10 to the first power, that means we have 10 one time. So it equals 10. If we have 10 to the second power, that means we have 10 times 10. If we have 10 to the third power, we would have 10 times 10 times 10. So this would equal 100. This would equal 1,000. And 10 to the fourth would be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or 10,000. So when we multiplied 13 to 10 to the fourth, we have 13 times 10 to the fourth. We make that number 10,000 times bigger. And you'll notice, even though this is more of a trick, we don't want kids just to learn tricks, there are 4 zeros. And if a child had to explain, well, how do you know what 13 times 10 to the fourth is, they're not going to say, because the 4 tells me to add 4 zeros. That's not going to be an explanation. The explanation would be that this 13 is 10,000 times bigger. And so it becomes 13,000, or 130,000, sorry, 130,000. So that is the type of work that your child will be doing and be expected to master at the end of the year assessment. Now I'm going to go back to the document, because in addition to that, you will be given problems such as modeling multiplication and finding the mistakes that a student makes. Now again, our Class Connect sessions are going to talk about what an area model is. This was introduced in 4th grade, but you may not have ever seen this before. So we want to talk to you about that. But basically, an area model takes the numbers like 23 and breaks it into 20 and 3, and 25 and breaks it into 20 and 5. And then when you multiply the tens times the tens, the tens times the ones times the 10, and the ones times the ones. And so you need to discover, did Jade multiply correctly? And then here is Jade's explanation, and explain, like, is she right? And then Max did the same thing, and did he do it right? Did he make any mistakes? So I'm going to show you some videos on how to teach those strategies in just a second. And then for division, it goes into dividing this number by 15 and estimating, could it be in between this number? And so again, the Class Connect sessions are going to be a great tool for you as you try to help your child master these concepts. This is not something that's taught and mastered in one day, and it does take lots and lots of practice. So I highly encourage you to let your child attend the Class Connects, and since this session or this lesson could come before the Class Connect start, you could skip this extended problem solving until they have a chance to go to the Class Connects, and then you can work on things a little bit more after they have instruction from the teacher as well. So I'm going to go back to the internet, because I want to share with you lots and lots of things in case you are wondering how you might be successful in helping your child. One link that is in the newsletter is a link to Learn Zillion, and this is a free website with videos, and I have included some quick codes. For instance, here's LZ4389. So if you enter that quick code, you will automatically be opened up to lessons on multiplication. Now in this, it's going to teach the area model, the partial products model, and the standard algorithm. And so while that's loading, I'm going to show you another website. I'll come back to that one. This website is the Georgia Department of Education. Now, I have scrolled down to Patterns Are Us, but in this document, I'm going to go back to the very beginning. In this document, it has lots and lots of activities, and this is just Unit 1 from the Georgia Department of Education, but it has, again, lots of information for teachers and parents. It has some things that are really important for students to understand. It has guiding questions that are good additions to you and your home environment to helping your child understand the math. Asking them questions often is the key to success. I'm going to see if I can get that to open up again. I think it may have frozen on me, so we'll go back to that in a second. But then what we're going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go to that Patterns Are Us, which was after there was some initial lessons on orders of operations, and we're going to teach that later on in the year, but you can scroll on down to the Patterns Are Us, and what you're going to see is that powers of 10 and using 10 with the exponent and making that number larger, just like your child's going to see on that extended problem solving. So as I scroll through, you can use this document. There's lots of different games. This same document also goes over multiplication and division, and it provides a few games for that. So here we are in this particular lesson, and it gives you some tips on how to teach that concept. And it says even though this lesson doesn't go into decimals, the next units 2 and 3 do. And it talks about, again, like I said, the common misconceptions, and it tells you some different strategies to use to help students understand this. And so in addition to the Patterns Are Us, if you go through the lessons, you'll also see some multiplication 3 in a row and some games that you can play with your child. Now, if your student needs manipulatives, there is an online manipulative site that I will also provide the link to, and you can simply maybe go to a work mat, and let's say we need place value to millions. So let's do a place value chart, and then maybe our child needs to work with some base 10 blocks so they can really understand what 1,000 means, and 1,000 is 10 times bigger than 100, and 100 is 10 times bigger. And so you can put these onto your screen. You can also use the pen tool and ask your child questions such as, well, okay, I just built the number 9,999. How does this digit compare to this digit? And you could say, well, this one is 10 times smaller because it's to the left. So this one is 1/10 the size. But when I move up, I know that I get 10 times bigger. So this 9 in the thousands would be 10 times the size. So when I move to the left, I get 10 times smaller. And when I move to the right, I get 10 times bigger. Another great website, I'll go back to this Learn Zillion since it's loaded. This is an example of where you can find videos to teach the area model and partial products and then the standard algorithm. There's also videos on division, powers of 10, exponents, place value, all sorts of things for all grades 2nd through high school. So when you go to this, there's 3 different videos, and I would highly encourage you to watch each of them, and then it'll help you be a better learning coach in using these strategies on a daily basis with your own student. The other site that I want to let you know about is our elementary math web page. Here there is a page on fact fluency if your child is just struggling with basic facts, and links there. But I'm going to go to the K5 math resources and show you how to get directly to the 5th grade page. And when you get to the 5th grade page, you can go to numbers and operations in base 10. And I'll provide a link directly to this page as well. This is where a lot of these resources are going to be combined and all in one spot for you. So When you go to numbers and operations in base 10, you're going to see the standard, and you can see that it talks about the place to the right and 1/10 to the left. And then there's going to be links to games and tons of resources for you. So let me scroll down. There's videos, there's links about powers of 10, there's some interactive charts and games that you can do online, because not every child learns best from just doing things in a workbook. Sometimes they need that hands-on and interactive approach. Here is another great video about what it means to multiply a number by a power of 10. And then there's lots of lessons on rounding and all sorts of things. Now, if your child is struggling with something that was taught in 3rd and 4th grade, feel free to use those links and go back to review. It's perfectly fine to go back and talk about rounding and from another grade level, because it's not always, every skill isn't necessarily taught in every grade, but in the classroom we do spiral and review those concepts. Now I am going to get my document camera out again, and I'm going to show you another great fun game just to review place value. And this is a place value chart that you could just create on your own. We do encourage children to have a math journal so that as they're doing their work, that they're not just trying to look at a screen, but they are actually writing their work down in a math journal and explaining their thinking. Because when kids have to pick up a pencil and do the multiplication themselves and really work it out and then make notes of why, they're going to benefit so much more. So here is a place value chart, and you can use a deck of cards, and you could print 2 of these, one for yourself and one for your student, or you could have the whole family could compete. So you could pick a card, and so here we have an 8, and everyone can decide, oh, I think I'm going to put my 8 here because that's a large, I think I'll put it right here because we're trying to make the biggest number. With somebody else, and we'll just do this side for right now, could just say hundreds. Let's see, now we have a king. Well, I'm going to say the kings are 1s, and so I'm going to put mine here. Let's say that we have a 3. We put them in the same spot. Okay, jokers are 0s, so we'll put that there. We have a 6, and then I'm gonna keep on going. We have a 2, I'll put that there, and then another 3, so we put that there. And then we could see who won the place value contest by building the largest number. So we could see that this person won because they have an 8 in the 10,000s, and that would be worth 80,000, and this would be only worth 60,000. You could also have discussions like, well, okay, how much bigger is your 8 than my 8? And since it goes over 2 times, well, it's 100 times bigger. And then you could say, how much smaller is your 8? Well, I went over 2 times, so it's 100th the size. You could also talk about, when there's a 0 as a digit and how you would write that. Even though this unit doesn't go into decimals, some of the Class Connect sessions and the Study Island lessons will go into decimals, so this is a great way to introduce those concepts of tenths and hundredths. And what I always like to say is that, we always think of the word and when we do the decimal point. So we have 83,061 and 23 thousandths, and we end with that word. And these words in the decimals have a TH at the end. So that's how tens are different than tenths. And there's no such thing as a 1th. So we can use this as our placeholder, like we have our 1/10ths, hundredths, and then thousandths. So there's lots of fun games to do. You can even do something such as this. This is a space chase place value game, and I will send a link to this as well. But students or family members can compete against each other, especially if they're trying to review place value and the value of a digit. You can make a spinner with just a paper clip and a pencil and spin. And so I have an 8, and so just like we did on the previous place value chart, I could say, well, where do I want my 8 to be? I think I want it to be in the 10,000ths place. So I'm going to capture him, Kerpoo, and I'm going to put an 8 in the 10,000ths place, and we can have a contest to see who ends up building the largest number. So there, like I said, there's tons of fun things to do and to engage your child um, in math. We don't want students, just like I said, to get answers. We want them to understand what they're doing. So again, Unit 1 covers lots and lots of things. That's why we're going to take our time to really cover these things in our Class Connect sessions as well. If you're not able to complete every assignment every single day, definitely reach out to your teacher, because they will be having small group sessions to help with these same skills. And so they can work on these to help your child be successful as the year goes on. Don't forget to go through all of the tutorials that are in lesson 1. And on this optional day, you might decide that you need more extra practice on multiplication. But even though it doesn't say it, practice your math facts every single day. And then when it gets down to this extended reasoning, if you don't feel confident in taking that lesson or doing that assessment yet, go to Class Connects for a while, reach out to your teacher and be invited to a small group so they can go over some of these things, and then go back after you skip that and make sure you do it, because it is one of the most important parts of the lesson. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great mathematical year.